ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्योजात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. Now the Guru is teaching the Shishya how to do the Atma Anatma Viveka. And in the Anatma, to talk about the Anatma and say that the Atma is not Anatma, the Guru has taken 5 layers of Anatma, which are called as the Annamaya kosha. A kosha means a layer or a sheath. A kosha is a sheath. So Annamaya kosha, the food sheath, or what is called as the gross physical body. Pranamaya kosha, the physiological sheath or the prana kosha. And then Manomaya kosha, the emotional sheath or the mind sheath, the Manomaya kosha. Vignanamaya kosha, which is the intellect, the sheath of the intellect, and anandamaya kosha. Now, in this, we are studying the vignanamaya kosha. And in the last session, we saw that vignanamaya also is nothing but a vikara of prakriti. It is a modification of prakriti. We saw that in the previous session. We saw that it is nothing but a modification of prakriti. Now, we saw in the 185th verse, which we were seeing last time, the Anandamaya Kosha was described as Anuvrajat Chit Pratibimba Shaktihi. This Vijnanamaya Kosha, being the subtlest of the Sukshma Sharira, has got the capacity or the Shakti or the power to reflect the Atma Chaitanyam, to reflect consciousness, which is called as the Atma Chaitanyam. It can reflect this Atma Chaitanyam, and so it illumines everything by reflecting Atma Chaitanyam. So, what does this Vijnanamaya Kosha do? The Atma Chaitanyam gets reflected in this Vijnanamaya Kosha or the Buddhi, because the Buddhi is the subtlest reflecting medium available in the body, and because of the reflection that is formed, which is called as Chidabhasa, this Buddhi, with the help of Chidabhasa, is able to illumine the rest of the world. This is how the Chidabhasa, through the Buddhi, along with the Buddhi, illuminates the entire experiential Jagat. So now he says here, Anuvrajat Chit Pratibimba Shaktihi. That means it is able to shine or illumine the whole world by forming a reflection of Sakshi Chaitanya Atma, Pratibimba Shakti, reflection it forms. And through that reflection, the Vijnanamaya Kosha is able to reflect this light of consciousness and see or perceive and experience everything in this Jagat. Now, this is called as Vijnana Sanyaha. This is called as Vijnanamaya Kosha, but at the same time, it is Prakritehe Vikaraha. It is the Vikara of the Prakriti only. It is not an independent thing by itself. It is not Atma, it is not independent. What it means is this Vijnanamaya Kosha illumines the whole world not independently. Atma illumines everything independently without the help of anything. But this Vijnanamaya kosha directly, independently cannot light up anything. What does it do? It lights up by using the reflection of Atma Chaitanya, what we call as Chidabhasa, and through this Chidabhasa, it lights up the entire experiential world. But it is Prakritehe Vikaraha, because Vijnanamaya Kosha also is in the form of vrittis. It is also in the form of thoughts. The buddhi works in the form of thoughts. When I say I know something, when I say I don't know something, when I say I'm experiencing something, when I say I'm the doer of something, I'm the experiencer of something, it is the thoughts in the buddhi which are expressing themselves as experiences. Therefore, it is prakritehe vikaraha. The Vijnanamaya is nothing but the vikara or the modification of the prakriti in the form of various thoughts. The vritti, there are different vritti vikaras. There are different kind of thoughts which are present, and this is how I experience the entire Jagat with the Vijnanamaya kosha. Then he says, Jnana Kriyavan. It is there where Jnana Shakti is there and Kriya Shakti is there. This is the Vijnanamaya kosha where the doing happens and the knowing happens. So the power to know is a Vijnanamaya kosha's power. Of course, backed by the Atma Chaitanya, it is a Vijnanamaya which knows and which decides to act. So the Jnana Shakti and the Kriya Shakti, that is Jnana Kriyavan. It is the knower and it is the doer. Jnanavan, the knower. Kriyavan, the doer. And what does it do? Aham iti dehendriyadishu ajasram abhimanyate brisham. All the time, this Vijnanamaya kosha is identifying itself with Deha, Indriya, Adi. That means what? Deha, Prana, Indriya, Mana, etc. It is constantly identifying. So this Vijnanamaya is Ajasram, constantly identifying itself with the body mind sense complex and function as the doer and experiencer, doer and experiencer. All the time, always Ajasram, Bhrisham, it is wrong. It is, it is a mistaken notion of the Vijnanamaya, but still the Vijnanamaya is constantly, always identifying itself with the body mind sense complex, and it functions by this identification. Vijnanamaya cannot directly function because it is in the form of vrittis, it is in the form of thoughts. The Vijnanamaya has the Jnana Shakti, the Kriya Shakti, and through the instrument of the mind and the prana and the body, it is this Vijnanamaya kosha which is actually the doer. If something has to be done, who is the doer? It is the Vijnanamaya which is the doer with the help of the mana, with the help of prana, with the help of Sthula Sharira. It is this Vijnanamaya kosha which becomes the doer, and also it becomes the experiencer, and it also becomes the knower. The knower, doer, and experiencer becomes the Vijnanamaya kosha. This is what we saw in the last session. Now, in the next two verses again, the descriptions of Vijnanamaya kosha are given again in the next two verses. The next verse, we take it as 186th verse and 187th verse. We can take them together. The two verses are taken together. Here, I may just remind you that out of the 108 verses which we are going to study, we are right now in the 54th verse, which we are in the halfway mark. You might not have realized it because we are going by the verse numbers in the original. But right now I am doing the 54th verse out of 108 verses that we are studying. And this 54th verse we are studying is corresponding to 186th verse in the original. This just by just saying by the side, I'm just saying that we have almost completed 50% mark of our 108 verses of Vivekachudamani. Now, in the 186th verse, what is said here about the Vijnanamaya kosha, he says, अनादिकालोऽयमहं स्वभावः जीवः समस्तव्यवहारवोढा करोति कर्माण्यपि पूर्ववासनः पुण्यान्यपुण्यानि च तत्फलानि. We will read the next verse also, 187th verse also we'll read. Bhumte vichitra swapiyo nishubhrajan ayati niryatyadha urdhvameshaha asyaiva vijnanamayasya jagrat swapnadhyavasthaha sukha dukha bhogaha. So this completes the picture of the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So let us go to the details of the 186th verse. So he says, Anadi kalo ayam aham swabhavaha. From beginningless time, this Vijnanamaya, which is the jiva, which can also be called as the jiva, because I already said that, it is in Vijnanamaya Kosha that the Atma Chaitanya gets reflected and forms the Chidabhasa, the reflection. This Chidabhasa, the reflection, along with the Buddhi, forms what is known as the jiva or the ahankara, and with the entire other parts of the Sukshma Sharira and the Sthula Sharira, this Vijnanamaya Kosha is the one who is taking care of, who's doing all the Vyavaharas that are possibly done. So, this Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anadikalo Ayam Aham Swabhavaha. Anadikala, from time immemorial, without a beginning, has this sense of I, iti ahankara. The sense of I, the sense of ahankara is what is being, it is endowed with. This Vijnanamaya Kosha is endowed with that aham iti ahankaraha. And since when? Anadi kalaha. That is how the jiva is anadi. We say the jiva is anadi. Why is the jiva anadi? Because the jiva is coming and going in different bodies. It is the same jiva. If I am alive today, for the last millions of births, the same jiva has traveled from one physical body to the other. The physical body is unique, but the jiva is the one which goes from one physical body to the other. And what is this jiva? This chidabhasa, the chaitanyam which is reflected in the Vijnanamaya, this with the buddhi, which is called as ahankara, jiva. There are two different names given for this particular entity. And this buddhi starts feeling itself to be an individual. Sorry, this buddhi, because it is associated with the deha abhimana, with the deha indriyadishu abhimanyante, ahamiti abhimanyate, ahamiti abhimanyate, iti we saw in the last verse. So, since its entanglement and mistaking itself to be the deha, indriya, prana, mana, constantly associated with them, anadikalaha ayam aham swabhavaha. I am an individual. I am the jiva. I am this jiva, which is the body mind sense complex. It is this identification is there anadi kalaha from time immemorial, because the jiva is also anadi, the chidabhasa is also anadi, and this vijnanamaya kosha, the sukshma sharira being anadi, from the beginningless time, this vijnanamaya kosha has always had identification with the body mind sense complex and considers itself to be an individual jiva. Then jivaha samasta vyavahara vodaha. This Vijnanamaya Atma itself, along with the Chidabhasa or the reflected consciousness, is called as the Jiva. And this Jiva carries on all the Vyavaharas, all the transactions. So if you say, who's the transactor? When I say the Jiva is transacting with other Jivas, the Jiva is transacting with the world outside. So who is this transactor out of this Jiva? Who is the transactor? This Jiva is nothing but Vijnanamaya Kosha along with the Chidabhasa, and this combination, which is called as Ahankara or Jiva, is Sarva Vyavahara Vodha. It is the one which carries on all the Vyavaharas. And then Karoti Karmani Api Purva Vasanaha. It does the karmas dependent upon its purva vasanas. The various purva vasanas, various lives, it has accumulated impressions, it has accumulated memories. All the purva vasanas are there in the vignanamaya kosha, and therefore karmani karoti. All the karmas are done with the vasanas of all the previous janmas samskaras, what are called as the impressions, the memories which are stored in the form of impressions called as samskaras are there deeply embedded in this vijnanamaya kosha, and depending on that the Vijnanamaya does the Vyavaharas. That is why each of us do the Vyavahara in different way. I do a particular Vyavahara or a particular action in a different way. You do it in a different way. Another person does it in a different way. Why? Because whatever actions I do, these actions are based on my previous experiences, my past life experiences in the form of various samskaras. So, karoti karmani api purva vasanaha. The samskaras are also called as vasanas. Purva vasanaha. With purva vasana, this Vijnanamaya kosha does all its vyavaharas. Punyani apunyani cha tatphalani. And what kind of transactions this Vijnanamaya does? This may do punya karmas, it may do papa karmas. Punya karmas, apunya karmas, all kinds of vyavaharas, good deeds, bad deeds, all kinds of vyavaharas are done by this Vijnanamaya kosha and tat phalani cha. And that becomes the experiencer of all the phalas of whatever has been done. Therefore, Vijnanamaya is the karta, and the jiva in the form of Vijnanamaya also becomes the experiencer of the karma phalas. It becomes the experiencer of karma phalas. And then what does it do? In the next verse, in the 187th verse, it is that Bhumte vichitrasu api yonishu vrajan. This Vijnanamaya with Chidabhasa, which is called as the Jiva, travels to different lokas. Every birth it travels, bhumte, it experiences, it gathers various experiences, vichitrasu api yonishu vrajan. It is born in different as different jivas, in the yonis of different jivas. This Vijnanamaya is born. This time I may be born as a human being. If my karmas are good karmas, punya karmas, next life I may be born in an exalted loka like Swargaloka or Pitraloka or something. If the karmas that I have done are the fructifying karmas, or if my prarabdha is predominantly bad karma or papa karma, I may be born in a lower world also. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, which world I don't know. Therefore, what he says is here, Vichitrasu api yonishu vrajan. In different, the jiva travels through different yonis. It travels to different parentage. In different forms, names and forms of jivas. Ayati niryati adha urdhvamesha. Ayati niryati comes and goes, comes and goes. Where does it come and go? Into different worlds. The worlds may be higher lokas, urdhvam, or it may be, adha lokas, adha urdhvam eshaha, urdhvam adha eshaha. This may travel to higher lokas, this may travel to lower lokas. Travel to higher lokas, travel to lower lokas, depending upon whatever punya karmas or papa karmas this particular jiva has done. Since Vijnanamaya is the jiva, Vijnanamaya is the ahankara. It is the same thing. A jiva and ahankara, Vijnanamaya, they are all paryaya padas for the same thing. So this particular Vijnanamaya kosha, since it travels in different yonis, it goes up and down like a bird. Like how a bird perches on a tree, jumps to higher branches, after some time it perches and jumps to lower branches. Like that, this jiva, this Vijnanamaya, keeps coming back again and again and again into cycles of birth and death, into higher lokas sometimes, lower lokas sometimes. It is like a bird jumping from branch to branch in a tree. Adhaha urdhvameshaha ayati niryati. Ayati comes niryati. Adhaha urdhvameshaha. अस्यैव विज्ञानमयस्य जागृत स्वप्नादि अवस्था सुख दुःख भोगः. And this Vijnanamaya goes through all the sukhas and dukkhas in both the Jagrat Avastha and the Swapna Avastha. Because Vijnanamaya is the jiva. Then what happens in Sushupti Avastha? The Vijnanamaya is completely resolved. There is no doer, there is no experiencer. Where is the doer and where is the experiencer? In which avastha? In Jagrid avastha, the same Vijnanamaya acts as a knower, as a doer. In the Swapna avastha also, it is the same Vijnanamaya which acts as the knower and also as the doer. In Sushupti Avastha, it is the same Vijnanamaya which undergoes a total resolution and is neither a karta nor a jnata, neither a knower nor a doer. So, asyaiva Vijnanamayasya, for this Vijnanamaya kosha, Jagrit Swapnadi Avasthaha. In Jagrit Avastha and Swapna Avasthaha, Sukha Dukkha Bhogaha. The Sukha and Dukkhas in Jagrit Avastha. The Sukhas and Dukkhas experienced in the Swapna Avastha are the Bhoga, are the experiences. For what? For this Vijnanamaya Atma. Then in the next verse, he says, in the verse 206th verse, Bhagwan Shankaracharya says, then am I the Atma, this Vijnanamaya Kosha? Am I Vijnanamaya Kosha? That is what is going to be talked about now. And in the next verse he says, Ato nayam paratma syad Vijnanamaya shabdataha Vikaritva jadatva cha Parichinnatva hetutaha Drishyatvad vyabhicharitvad Na anityo nitya ishyate. Because there's proper meter is not here. I'm reading it like a prose like bhasha. So here it says ato, ataha, therefore. From this, all these features or swarupa of Vijnanamaya, what do we come to know? Na ayam paratma. Vijnanamaya is not Atma. Atma is not Vijnanamaya. Vijnanamaya depends on Atma. Vijnanamaya borrows sentience from Atma. Vijnanamaya reflects the Atma Chaitanya, but Atma, I, the real I, Atma, is not Vijnanamaya. Then what is this I, the Vijnanamaya? The Vijnanamaya is this Ahankara, the Jiva, which by mistake I call as I. By mistake, by my delusion, I consider myself to be Jiva. Therefore, I say I am this body, I am this mind. Who is saying that? This Vijnanamaya, which is identifying itself with the body mind sense complex, along with the Chidabhasa, that is the reflection of Atma in it, considers itself to be a separate individual Jiva, and then it says I, a sense of individuality is there. This is what is called as Ahankara. Am I Atma the Ahankara? No, I'm not the Ahankara. So Nayam Paramatma. Nayam Paramatma means what? Syad Vijnanamaya Shabdataha. This one, which is called as Vijnanamaya, Atma is not Vijnanamaya. I am not Vijnanamaya. Why? Whenever you say Maya, I told you in the last session only. Whenever you say Maya, it means it is a Vikara. Vijnanamaya, that means it is a Vikara of Prakriti. So Annamaya, Vikara of Anna, Pranamaya, Vikara of Vayu, Manomaya, Vikara of Prakriti, Vijnanamaya, Vikara of Prakriti in the form of various vrittis. Therefore, Vijnanamaya Shabdataha, because of that word called Maya, Vijnanamaya, I have to clearly understand I am not the Vijnanamaya Koshaha. I am the Atma, which is the original Bimba Chaitanya, whereas this, our Vijnanamaya, is Pratibimba Chaitanya, is there in Vijnanamaya. But who am I? I am the original Bimba Chaitanya. I am not this Vijnanamaya Atma. Vijnanamaya Shabdataha, because the very Maya comes in this Vijnanamaya Shabdaha. I am not the Vijnanamaya Kosha. I am not the Vijnanamaya Atma. Atma, I am not the Vijnanamaya. Vikaritva Jadatvacha. The Vijnanamaya also changes constantly. As a doer, the Vijnanamaya is constantly changing. As an experiencer, the Vijnanamaya is constantly changing. As an identifier with the body mind sense complex, again the Vijnanamaya is constantly changing. Now I am a doer of this action. The next moment I'm a doer of another action. Now I'm speaking this particular word. In the next few minutes, I'll be speaking some other words. Therefore, this Atma is not Atma, I is not Vijnanamaya, because Vijnanamaya is constantly changing. Vikaritvat, Jadatvat. It is normally insentient. What makes it sentient? It is the Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness, which makes the Vijnanamaya sentient and full of life. Otherwise, Vijnanamaya is a vikara of Prakriti. It is a vikara of the Pancha Mahabhutas. Therefore, like Annamaya, like Pranamaya, like Manomaya, Vijnanamaya kosha also is Jada. That means it is actually insentient. All these koshas are made sentient by what? By the Atma Chaitanyam. It is the Atma Chaitanyam which makes all of them sentient. Therefore, Vikaritvat, Jadatvacha, Parichinnatva Hetutaha. And this Vijnanamaya is limited, correct? My knowledge is limited. My capacity to know is limited. My capacity to act or work or do any transaction is limited. Therefore, it is parichinnaha. Vijnanamaya is limited, whereas Atma is limitless. It is all pervading. It is eternal. It is infinite. Whereas Vijnanamaya, it is absolutely restricted. It is actually limited. Space wise limited, time wise limited. Therefore, Vijnanamaya is Parichinnatva Hetutaha. Because of its limitations, Vijnanamaya is as limited as Manomaya, as limited as Pranamaya, as limited as Annamaya. Therefore, along with others, this Vijnanamaya also is Parichinna. It is limited. It is limited in space, limited in time, and limited in Vastuhu. And also Drishyatvad Vyabhicharitvad. Drishyatvat. This Vijnanamaya also is an object of my perception. It is a drishyam. Why? I know that I know. I know that I don't know. I know that I am doing this particular thing. I know that I am experiencing this particular thing. Therefore, the functions of the Vijnanamaya, the doership of Vijnanamaya, the knowingness of Vijnanamaya ultimately are objects of my perception. So it is nothing but a perceived thing. Parichinnatvat, drishyatvat. It is drishyam. We saw these reasons for other koshas also why they are anatma. What is being said here is Vijnanamaya is anatma. Atma is not Vijnanamaya. Why is it anatma? Drishyatvat, Vikaritvat, okay, Jadatvat, Prakriti Vikaritvat. So the same reasons which we gave for Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya as to why they are anatma, same reasons are being given here. One thing is it is Vikari, it is Vyabhicharitvat, constantly changing. Vikari, again it means constantly changing. Drishyatvat, the Vijnanamaya is an object of my perception, and therefore this is Anitya. Vijnanamaya is Anitya. And how can Anitya Vijnanamaya be Nitya Atma? So he says, Na Anityo Nityam Ishyate. Okay, Vyavicharitvat. Na Anityoho Nitya Ishyate. Na Anityaha. This Anitya Vijnanamaya can never be the Nitya Atma. The Nitya Atma can never be the Anitya Vijnana Maya. So therefore, Vijnanamaya Kosha also is not Atma. Then what is Vijnanamaya? Along with the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, the Vijnanamaya also is Anatma. All the four layers are nothing but those which are born out of Prakriti. They are the vikaras of Prakriti. They are all Jada. They don't have sentience of their own. They reflect the consciousness which is reflected by the buddhi, and all of them are made sentient. And this identification of the vignanamaya with the body mind sense complex is what is called as the jiva. And who am I? I am not the jiva. I am not the vignanamaya. I am not the manomaya. I am not the pranamaya. I am not the annamaya. Then who am I? I am the nitya shuddha buddha mukta atma. So four layers of anatma are over. Now the fifth layer comes. What is the fifth layer? It is called as the anandamaya kosha. As I said, the gross physical body, sthula sharira, is called annamaya, and the karana shariram is called as anandamaya, and the in between sukshma sharira is divided into three portions, that is pranamaya, manomaya and vignanamaya. And we have completed the sthula sharira annamaya, sukshma sharira comprising of three parts, pranamaya, manomaya and vignanamaya. Now what is left behind? Karana shariram part of anatma is left behind, and that karana shariram is called as anandamaya kosha. Now let us go to the 207th verse in the main one, 207th verse, where this Anandamaya Atma is explained, or Anandamaya Kosha is explained. So let us see here. आनन्दप्रतिबिम्बचुम्बिततनुः वृत्तिस्तमोजृम्भिता स्यादानन्दमयः प्रियादिगुणकः स्वेष्टार्थलाभोदयः पुण्यस्यानुभवे विभाति कृतीनाम् आनन्दरूपः स्वयम् सर्वो नन्दति यत्र साधुतनुः बृन्मात्रप्रयत्नं विना. So here he says, Ananda Pratibimba Chumbita Ananda Pratibimba Chumbita Tanu Vrittihi. The Anandamaya Kosha is also nothing but a thought modification. It is the modification of Prakriti itself. Tamo guna of Prakriti. Tamo Vijrambhita, here it is said. Tamo Vijrambhita, the Tamo guna of Prakriti is shining in the Anandamaya Kosha. And what does it do? This Anandamaya Kosha reflects the Swa Atma Ananda. The Atma Ananda, just like Vijnanamaya completely reflects the light of consciousness, the knowingness of Atma, the Anantatvam or the Anandam of Atma is reflected first in this Karana Sharira or in the Anandamaya Kosha. Because this Anandamaya Kosha reflects the Atmananda, it is called as Anandamaya Kosha. So Ananda Pratibimba Chumbita Tanu Vrittihi, a little different, difficult words here. Ananda Pratibimba. The Swatma Ananda is reflected, Pratibimbita, where in this Anandamaya Kosha. And ultimately, the Anandamaya Kosha also is nothing but the various Ananda Vrittis, Sukha Vrittis, the thoughts which are associated with degrees of happiness. When there is a reflection of Ananda of Atma, there are degrees of happiness which are experienced by us. What are those degrees of happiness? Those are the thoughts which are there, the degrees of happiness in the Anandamaya Koshaha, Anandamaya Priyadi Gunakaha. Now let us understand this very clearly. This Anandamaya Kosha has got three types of vrittis, three types of thoughts. Priya, Modaha, Pramodaha, it is called as Priyadi Vrittis. The reflection of Ananda, the reflected Swatma Ananda in the Anandamaya Kosha manifests itself in three grades, in three forms. It is called as Priya, Moda and Pramoda. What is the difference between Priya, Moda and Pramoda? When I see something which I like, the happiness that I get out of seeing something which I like is called as priya vritti. Priya vritti, priya. I feel a sense of happiness. A degree of happiness is felt by me when I see something or someone which or whom I like. Priya vritti. Then, when I possess that particular thing of my choice which I want, the degree of happiness is higher. This is called as the moda vritti. Moda vritti means what? A higher degree of happiness. When I see something of my choice, of my liking, I feel a sense of happiness which is reflected ananda from Atmananda. This is called as the Priya Vrittihi, the mildest form of ananda. And that particular thing which I like or which I have had Priya Vritti for, if I own it, if I possess it, if it becomes mine, then there is a higher degree of happiness. This higher degree of happiness is what is called as Moda Vritti. Not just having it, but I enjoy it. For example, I like, say, ice cream. I see ice cream. There is a Priya Vritti which is, endowed, which is there, which arises in me. I buy that ice cream, possess the ice cream, higher grade, degree of happiness, moda vritti is there. I eat this ice cream and enjoy it. That is called as pramodaha. So seeing something which I like, a vastu of my liking, the happiness that I feel is called as priya. When I possess that particular vastu of my liking, that degree of happiness which is more than priya, that is called as the modaha. And when I enjoy that particular thing which I possess, which I like, it is called as pramodaha, the highest form of degree, highest degree of happiness which I can experience in Anandamaya Kosha. Happiness or Ananda experienced by the Anandamaya Kosha, it is called Ananda because this Ananda is experienced when I achieve any of my Dharma, Artha, Kama, Purusharthas. The Ananda of Atma is Swatmananda. Swatmananda or Anantatvam. It is not this Pratibimba Ananda, but whatever is reflected in the Anandamaya Kosha is the Pratibimba Ananda. And whenever I fulfill any of my Purushartha in the form of Dharma Purushartha, Artha Purushartha, or Kama Purushartha, whatever happiness is expressed at the level of Anandamaya Kosha. Therefore, he says, Anandamaya Syat Priyadi Gunakaha. Gunakaha means various degrees of happiness, starting from Priya, Priyadi, Priya, Moda, Pramoda, Iti Gunakaha, Priyadi Gunakaha. Different varieties, different degrees of happiness. And when do these happiness, degrees of happiness happen? Swa Ishta, Swa Ishta Artha Labhodayaha. When Swa Ishta Artha Labha is there, I like something, Swa Ishta, Artha, Labha is there. When I achieve something, when I attain something, the happiness that is observed, the happiness that is experienced by me in the form of Priya Vritti, Moda Vritti, and Pramoda Vritti, Swa Ishta Artha Labhodayaha, which is brought about by my coming in contact with the object of my liking. When I come in contact with the object of my liking, whatever happiness is expressed, it is nothing but the Atmananda reflected in Anandamaya Kosha. This is the reflected Ananda. And when does it happen? When do I get this kind of Ananda? When any of my Ishta Purushartha is fulfilled. And he says, Punyasya Anubhave Vibhati. This kind of ananda is enjoyed more when I do punya karmas, when I have done punya karmas. Punyasya anubhave. When I have done punya karmas, and as a result of my punya karmas, I get something which is an object of my liking. That is what is called as punyasya anubhave vibhati. This happiness shines when out of my punya I get whatever I want. I get the object of my liking out of my punya, punyasya anubhave vibhati. This happiness, this reflected happiness in the Anandamaya shines. Kritinam, for a person who has done the Punya karma, is experiencing Punya. For such a person, Kritinam, Ananda Rupaha, Swayam Sarvo Nandati. In all these situations, whenever Punya karma is done, as a result of the Punya karma, whenever I get the Ishta Phala Prapti, Ishta Artha Prapti, at that time, whatever degrees of happiness I undergo, that is the happiness or Ananda which is originating in the Anandamaya Kosha. And it is in 3 degrees Priya, Moda, Pramodaha. And he says, Sarvo Nandati Yatra Sadhu Tanubhrin Matra Prayatnam Vina. For this human being, Tanubhrit means the one who is a human being, this happiness is enjoyed without any effort. Effortless Ananda. That is what it is. The Anandamaya Kosha's Ananda is effortless Ananda. See, if the reflection of Atmananda in Anandamaya is effortless Ananda, just imagine what kind of an Ananda, how effortless the Atmananda must be. We have not yet come to that Atmananda. Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Satchit Ananda Rupa Atma. It is this Ananda Rupa Atma, that infinite Ananda of Atma, which gets Pratibimbita in the Anandamaya Kosha, which is responsible for all the happy moments in my life that I am experiencing. Sarvo Nandati. In all these situations, I am happy. Sarvo Nandati. Yatra Sadhuhu Tanubhran Matra. A good person, Sadhu Tanubhrat. A person who has done Punya Karma. That happiness which he feels because of his punya karma, on getting things of his choice. That is what is the reflected ananda in the Anandamaya Kosha, and it happens prayatnam vina, without any prayatna. Now, where is this Anandamaya Kosha actually seen? Where is it present? It says in the next verse, it says in the 208th verse. What is the actual place where this Anandamaya Kosha is predominant? Like we saw, Vignanamaya Kosha is predominantly active in Jagrit Avastha and Swapna Avastha. Manomaya Kosha is also predominantly active in Jagrit Avastha and Swapna Avastha. In which case, then Prana is active in all the 3 avasthas, Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti Avastha. Where is the Annamaya Kosha active? Only in Jagrit Avastha. It is not active in Swapna Avastha and Sushupti Avastha. In this case, in which situation and in which avastha is Anandamaya Kosha active? That is what is going to be talked about. He says, "An आनन्दमयकोशस्य सुषुप्तौ स्फूर्तिरुत्कटा स्वप्नजागरयोरीषद् इष्टसन्दर्शनादिनाम्." So, Anandamaya Kosha is predominantly present in Sushupti Avastha. That is why we are all very happy in sleep. We are very happy in sleep. We want to sleep. If there was no Ananda in sleep, no, none of us would have liked to sleep. We are sleeping because there is this Anandam. I feel this Anandam. This Ananda is felt by me when I wake up. When I wake up from my deep sleep, I know that I slept. I slept very well. I did not know anything. I was totally ignorant of what was happening around me, but I was extremely happy. This happiness or this ananda belongs to the Anandamaya Koshaha, and therefore Sushuptau Spurtirutkata. It is manifesting, it is shining, Spurtirutkata. Exclusively the Anandamaya Kosha shines in Sushupti Avastha. But Swapna Jagara Yoho Ishad, but occasionally in a small way, even in Jagrit Avastha and Swapna Avastha also, Ishta Sandarshanadina, when an object of my liking comes in front of me, the Anandamaya Kosha just shines temporarily with its ananda vrittis, even to a little extent in Jagrat and Swapnavastha. Ishad. Ishad means in a small way. Swapna Jagara Yoho Ishad. Swapna Jagara Yoho means what? Ishad, Swapna Jagara Yoho. It is shines in Swapna and Jagrat also a little bit, a wee bit, when it comes in contact with the object of its choice. Now, the last thing about Anandamaya in the next verse, in the 209th verse, is Atma Anandamaya? No, the Atma is not Anandamaya. Anandamaya also is a Vritti Vikara. Anandamaya also is Jada. It may be the subtlest Anatma, even subtler than the Buddhi. It is the subtlest Anatma, but it is Drishyam because I am aware of my Sukha. I am aware of my Priya Vritti, Moda Vritti, Pramoda Vritti. I am aware of my own ignorance. I am aware when I was asleep. I am aware when I wake up that I did not know anything. Therefore, this Anandamaya Kosha is Anatma. Anandamaya Kosha is not Atma. So he says, Naivayamanandamaya Paratma Sopadhikatvat Prakriter Vikarat कार्यत्वहेतोः सुकृतक्रियायाः विकारसङ्घातसमाहितत्वात् 209th verse. It says that Naiva ayam anandamaya paratma. Atma is not this anandamaya koshaha. Why? Sopadhikatvas. Because it has the upadhis or attributes in the form of priyavritti, modavritti and pramodavritti. Prakritehe vikarat. It is again a vikara or modification or product of the prakriti. Karyatva hetoho. It is a karyam of prakriti. It is the effect of prakriti. Therefore, it is not atma. Karyatva hetoho sukruta kriyayaha. It is experienced especially sukruta kriyayaha. When a person has done punya, when a person experiences punya, at that time the ananda that he experiences is sukrutasya sukruta kriyaya vikara sanghata samahitatvat. Vikara sanghata, it is the vikara sanghata. Sanghata means what? It is a conglomeration of, it is an association of all the vikaras because the priya, moda, and pramoda vrittis are constantly changing, constantly modifying, and this anandamaya, the ananda, is product of punya, product of good deeds. Therefore, vikaritvat, drishyatvat, jadatvat, prakriti vikaratvat. Because of these reasons, the Anandamaya is not Atma. Anandamaya is not the Atma. The Anandamaya is mere Anatma. That is what is being said here. So, in the next verse, in the 210th verse, ultimately the Anatma is wound up by Bhagwan Shankaracharya. And he says, पञ्चानामपि कोशानां निषेधे युक्तितः श्रुतेः तन्निषेधावधिः साक्षी बोधरूपोऽवशिष्यते. So, पञ्चानामपि कोशानां निषेधे, when I have rejected all the five koshas as anatma, how? With the help of the Shruti, with the help of the Guru, with the help of the Shastra. Tad nishedha avadihi sakshihi. When I have rejected all the five koshas as anatma, that consciousness which remains, the consciousness I, which is aware of the Annamaya, that which is aware of the pranamaya, that which is aware of the manomaya, vignanamaya, anandamaya, that sakshi of all the five koshas, pancha kosha vilakshana sakshi chaitanya atma, bodha rupaha avashishyate. When all the five koshas are negated as anatma, what remains is that pure consciousness, bodha swarupa, consciousness swarupa, the light of consciousness which remains. And this light of consciousness which has remained ultimately is what is called as Atma. So, what have I done? Atma Anatma Viveka. How have I done the Atma Anatma Viveka? Ishika Munjat, Munja grass. How that tender stem of the grass, Ishika, is very, very clearly removed from the covering outside from the munja grass. In the same way, the five covers of Atma, which are called as Anatma, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vignanamaya, Anandamaya, all these five layers of Anatma are negated, Nishedhaha. They are removed. How they are removed? We can't remove them physically. Intellectually, they are understood to be Anatma. Therefore, I, the Atma, cannot be any one of these five layers. These five layers are Jada, these five layers are Prakriti Vikaras, these five layers are Drishya Swarupas, these five layers are Vikaris, and they are not existent by themselves. They depend upon the Atmani. Therefore, who am I? I am neither the Annamaya, nor the Pranamaya, nor the Manomaya, nor the Vijnanamaya, nor the Anandamaya. Then who am I? I am the Panchakosha Vilakshanaha, Avasthatraya Sakshi, Sharitratraya Vyatiriktaha Atma. I am other than the three Shariras. I am that consciousness which is other than the three Shariras. I am that consciousness which is other than the five koshas. I am that Sakshi of all the three Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti Avastha. And I am that. This is what is called as Atma Anatma Viveka. And Atma Anatma Viveka has been completed with this. With this, we'll stop here because in the next session, the meaning of the word Tvam, the Tvam Padartha meaning is going to be told the whole thing. What is this Atma? What is the Swarupa? If I'm not the Anatma, if I'm not the five layers of Anatma, then who am I? I'm the Atma. If I'm the Atma, who am I? What is that Atma? What is my Swarupam? What is the Atma Swarupa iti? That is what is going to be talked about from the next verse, which we'll see in the next session. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्थाशाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ तत्सत्